Psalm 110, as you know, is the time when Jesus is placed on Zion in the midst of his enemies, and overtakes them, and he releases the rod of his strength and dashes the nations like a potter's vessel, and in so doing delivers Israel and results in the when he returns, the resurrection of the dead. But Psalms 108 and 109 are right on the cusp of that, right in the moments just before that. In Psalm 108, it's stunning. In Psalm 108, you could call this the pre-battle song, or the sword song of Jesus. And we find that Jesus declares in the first verse that his heart is steadfast. As he's at the right hand of the Father, which is where he begins in Psalm 110, his heart is steadfast and steadied and readied, anticipating the day to deliver Israel and rule and reign as king over the nations. And he says, moving on in Psalm 108 verse 2, which is the kind of the context giveaway related to the end times, is that he supplicates God, he intercedes in a way that says, be at my right hand, Father, when I go into battle. And he says that he will awake, Jesus says this, I will awaken the dawn, which is referring to that same time frame mentioned in Psalm 46 when he delivers Israel, and the same time frame when the dew was on the grass in Psalm 110, the same time that he delivered Israel in Exodus 14 in the splitting of the Red Sea. He is going to save and awaken the dawn and deliver them, but he's going to sing. He's going to awaken the dawn with all of his glory, his resurrected glory, and he's going to awaken it. And that song seems to be the very thing that quickens the dead in Christ, Jew and Gentile, in the resurrection of the dead, which is mentioned in Isaiah chapter 26, verse 19, when it says, the earth will give birth to the dead and they will sing. And so in context to that seventh trumpet song, Jesus is singing, and his heart is steady until that day when he delivers Israel. And he goes on and says that he's going to do it with all of his resurrected glory. And as the glorified man, the glory of the uncreated God will sing, and it will result in that. And his heart is anticipating that day that he's going to do that. Then in Psalm 109, it is so crazy because we find one of the most intense imprecatory prayers, which is essentially a prayer of judgment, ultimately a prayer of damnation, which is just so intense. But when we hear it coming out of the mouth of Jesus, we discover something quite profound. We actually discover that Jesus prays, which ultimately we discover for the Antichrist. What is that? The focus of his intercession, in context to Jesus' kindness, he actually prays at the beginning of Psalm 109 to allow the Antichrist to have Satan at his right hand, to be given the very power and throne and authority of all of the kingdom of darkness. So this is what's going on. Jesus essentially asked the Father, be at my right hand for the Psalm 110 battle, and then in his sovereign authority allows the very throne of Satan to be at the right hand of the Antichrist for what I call Psalm 110, the great day of the battle of the right hands. The messianic figure in Jesus, with all the power and authority of the eternal throne of God, goes and clashes against the battle of the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist, with all of the authority of Satan. And all of this Jesus sets up in order for Israel to be delivered. And it actually says in Psalm 109 that he might stand at the right hand of the poor, which is Israel in context of Psalm 109. Utterly mind-blowing how Psalm 108 and through 110 depict those culminating events under the great eschatological deliverance of Israel at the end.